Welcome to CityWorks, the program that listens to the working people of New York City. I'm Laura Flanders. A day's work for a day's pay. We've all heard that phrase, but each year hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers find themselves victims of wage theft. That's when employers deny workers the wages they've earned. Many of these employers are not hard up, quite the opposite. They make money. They're enriched by the practice of cheating their workers. CityWorks reporter Demetria Irwin is here with more.
Wage theft cost employees across this country billions in lost wages. Carlos Rodriguez knows all too well.
I used to work in Domino's Pizza 2 years. The boss, they pay me $4.40 an hour. I used to work more than 66 hours a week, and they pay me between 40 and 45 hours. So when I complain about the minimum wage and bad treatment, they fire me.
Selene Martinez, who worked 28 years in home care, was a victim of wage theft too.
En ese tiempo yo dejaba mi familia sola, mis hijos, mi esposo, mi hogar, para dedicarme a darle 24 horas, las cuales no eran pagadas las 24, solo me pagaban por 13 horas. Yo les reclamé un día a ellos que por qué ellos no me pagaban a mí 24 horas. Ellos me dijeron que los seguros médicos nada más pagaban por 12 horas y que por eso ellos no me pagaban a mí las 24. Porque yo ahora estoy enferma y no me están pagando, no sé cómo voy a pagar mis biles ahora.
Community organizer Sarah Ahn says the more vulnerable the community, the more common is wage theft.
I don't know if everyone is familiar with Flushing, but it's a very immigrant neighborhood. A lot of East Asians, but also South Asians, Latino, all sort of across the spectrum. And wage theft is rampant there. I remember when we started, we used to call it a labor disaster zone because employers just operated with, as if there was no laws, right? It was very common for restaurants to be paying their workers $300 to $500 a month.
How serious is the problem? The amount of wages lost each year in this country is greater than all other property crimes combined, over $50 billion. There are a lot of different ways workers can be victims of wage theft. They may be denied overtime pay or the tips that should be theirs. There are laws on the books to protect workers from such abuses, but advocates like Sarah Ahn say that these laws don't have enough teeth.
There are so many loopholes in our law, and our law is so weak that even when workers are really fighting tooth and nail, that they can still get away with it.
I went to the Department of Labor to sue my boss, and I get there and they take the case, but that took too long to resolve the case. And they say, oh, we're working on your case, but later I find out that they settled my case for $365. So we come together, we open a class action against Domino's Pizza, but when we sue again the boss, he declared bankruptcy, shut down 2 Domino's Pizza, and he said, oh, I don't have money.
Really, what kind of justice is that?
Many of these employers are not hard up. Quite the opposite. They are enriched by the practice of cheating their workers.
A lot of these employers, they have homes. They have big, nice, fancy homes out in Long Island, or they have bank accounts with lots of money in it. And so we think if they actually have to pay at the end of the day, that they'll actually think twice before they actually commit wage theft in the first place.
Ahora lo que estoy luchando para que el gobernador Cuomo firme la ley, empuje la ley para que ya no se trabaje 24 horas, solamente pagando 13 horas.
We workers really can't wait any longer. We advocated for this bill for 4 years. The problem has only gotten worse.
Stella Isyrel is an organizer with the Freelance Solidarity Project. She sees the pervasive effects of wage theft.
It impacts not just the family unit or the individual, but it also trickles into the community because those people are no longer to contribute in financial ways, meaning putting money back into their communities because they don't have it.
While the SWEAT legislation is a great step forward, clearly more needs to be done to protect workers' wages. For CityWorks, I'm Demetria Irwin.
So Demetria, you didn't just report this story, you kind of lived it, right?
Unfortunately, I have had experiences with wage theft in my time here in New York City, with publications being late paying me, and at one point I thought it was going to be not at all. And it came out, the most egregious wage theft story that I had was from Ebony magazine, one of my favorite publications, a legacy publication that's been out since 1945. My grandmother used to have it. I was so honored to write for this publication, and I had dozens of times previously.
So what a heartbreak.
It was such a heartbreak. First quarter of 2017, I wrote a story for a special issue. No problem. That's how it goes. It goes out, and nothing. I hear nothing about my invoice. Weeks go by, months go by, nothing. I'm contacting accounts payable. I'm getting just absolutely no response from them.
So then you found out you're part of a whole group.
Right.
It wasn't just you.
It wasn't just me. My editor at the time said, hey, there are some people getting together with the National Writers Union to fight this. Would you like to join us? And I said, absolutely, because I didn't think myself as a single person would be able to fight a huge publication like Ebony to get my little money back. Little, it was over $1,000, but it was probably little in their eyes. So I was very glad to join into the fight with the National Writers Union. And thanks to them, the dozens of writers who were involved in that lawsuit, we were all paid more than $80,000 total eventually. So I wrote that story in quarter one of 2017. I was paid in December of 2018. So
wow.
Almost 2 years. Unfortunately, I think union issues, wage theft, it's not a sexy issue. It's not the kind of headlines people really want to see. They're more interested in pop culture or things of that nature.
I don't know. Having your wages held back is pretty sexy to me.
Right. Having your wages returned to you, now that's sexy.
The New York State Assembly and Senate recently passed the so-called sweat bill to enable victims of wage theft to recoup unpaid wages by placing a temporary financial lien on their employers. The union-backed bill is currently awaiting Governor Andrew Cuomo's signature to become law. Meet Christian Cordova, Crown Heights bartender by night, songwriter and actor by day. New York City draws lots of artists and actors from all over the U.S. and the world. The city's full of opportunities, but pursuing your dreams can be a nightmare if you want to make ends meet while waiting for your big break. CityWorks spent some time with Christian to see how she gets it all done.
My mom migrated here from Mexico. She was really young when she got pregnant with me. She had me at the age of 20. It caused a lot of issues for her in her home. They were very strict. Me coming from a migrant mother, it's something that I have not been open about because of fear, because it's something that people don't really talk about. I don't want to be afraid anymore. I don't want to be behind closed doors, thinking I'm under the radar. I dive into many different mediums because I am mastering the art of me. I am creating myself along with discovering myself through writing, through modeling, through movement, through acting.
And here we are, still in search of them.
Our mother and father.
But we've never forgotten.
I'm going for my BFA in acting at Brooklyn College. I went through the audition process. I had to write 5 essays and I got in. I have a couple of headshots here. As an actor, you never know where your money's gonna come from. But starting off, you have to know that it's not gonna happen right away. There's been days where I've had a negative balance in my account, $0 in my pocket. I have a cousin who's been bartending for a while, and she says, Christian, there's this opportunity, come interview. Fridays, I start at 3, the bar opens at 4, and then it closes at 2 a.m. I'm getting out of here at like 2:45, 3 o'clock in the morning. I have to get here an hour before so I can go upstairs and mentally prepare. Because although I am welcomed, I still have to breathe and center myself. And I'm up there doing that, so once I'm down here, I'm ready to go. The challenges of being a bartender can range from having a bad day prior to your shift and trying to push that away to having someone get extremely drunk and aggressive. You need all your senses. You need to be open, always awake, always listening, have eyes behind your back, multitasking. And I am a very high energy person, so I excel in high energy places. As a bartender, you also have to be a therapist, but you gotta give them short therapy sessions, quick 5 minutes, and know when to cut them off. To be very honest with you, what helped me get to this point was my theater training, because I've taken speech classes, I've taken acting classes that really prepared me, that really built my character, that built my confidence.
What do you think, William? Should I use this rope or my hands?
I don't know, Stacy. They both have their merits.
I fell in love with it. And, you know, bartending is also fast money, and it's safe, because there are other ways to make fast money that are not safe, and I didn't want to go down that route. Tell me it's me that you need. Living in Sunset Park, it's like little Mexico on Fifth Avenue, you know, and I've grown so much out here. I've created so much out here as we elevate. I shot my music videos here in Sunset Park last year. The whole summer was just focused on that. Thankfully, there are restaurant bar jobs that are extremely flexible, and you're able to make enough to still go to auditions, to still be part of a play. I'm one in a million stories. You know what I'm saying? There's so many people like me, so many people that have had their parents pave that for them. And at the end of the day, we do it for our parents. I do it for my mother. I need to give her everything she's worked for. I need to give her a break. To cover her face from the pain.
The CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies is the 25th and newest school under the CUNY umbrella. Dedicated to public service and social justice, the CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies offers undergraduate and graduate degrees in the areas of labor studies and urban studies, and certificate programs in labor relations, public administration and public policy, healthcare policy and administration, and community leadership. We pride ourselves on being an institution that brings together activists and academics. Find out more at slu.cuny.edu.
New York City. We have the most unionized workforce in the country. Workers are twice as likely to be union members here as in any other part of the states. Strength in numbers makes all the difference when it comes to worker-employer negotiations. But laws, recession, and natural attrition mean that city union organizers can't sit on their laurels. A comprehensive new study co-authored by Ruth Milkman, research director of the CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies, sounds kind of an alarm. Milkman is also a distinguished professor of sociology at the City University of New York Graduate Center. Ruth, welcome to the program. Glad to have you. Union density. I can hear right-wingers making quips about the lucidity of our leaders, but that's not what we mean.
Union density just means the percentage of the workforce that is unionized.
And why is this so important?
Well, it's the best single measure of the strength of organized labor. And union density back in the heyday of labor in the 1950s was about 33%. Today it's down to only 6% in the private sector nationally, and as you said, roughly double that here in New York. So that's quite a change.
Public and private sectors continues to be very different. You've been doing these studies, I think, for 10 years. Is that what you said here in New York?
10 years here in New York.
What did you find this year?
So, yes, private sector density is the lowest, not just in New York, nationally. So, but here in New York, it's about 14%, whereas public sector, 2/3 of New York City workers are union members in the public sector. And basically the reason is that what's driven down private sector union density is employer opposition to unionism, and there's a lot less of that in the public sector since nobody's making a profit and there's some political visibility of the public sector and so on. So they're just completely different, although that may change in the future with a recent Supreme Court decision that affects public sector unions.
The Janus decision.
The Janus decision, which is a whole subject for a whole other conversation.
Well, let's talk about that in just a second, what union organizers are up against. But before we go there, because we are here in New York City, why is New York different from the rest of the country, like the way that it is?
Wow, that's such a great question, because historically, like I mentioned back in the 50s when unions were much stronger, New York wasn't any different. It was average. And for a lot of reasons, mostly to do with political factors, New York has been able to hold on much more to union strength than the rest of the country. It's declined here in New York too, but much less than elsewhere. And I think it's to do with a mix of things. Part of it is the composition of the labor force here. You know, in the old days, manufacturing was a big stronghold of unionism. In New York, manufacturing was never as important as it was in many other places. But so the decline has affected New York less. Another factor is the centrality of construction to the city's economy. I would say real estate is the single most important industry in the city of New York, and economically and probably politically too. And that's a very highly unionized sector here in New York. It isn't everywhere, but so that contributes a lot. The hotel union is very strong in New York, and of course tourism is another really important industry. So things like that make New York somewhat different from the rest of the country.
So the flip side of your story really is about organizing and about the challenges that organizers are up against.
So actually one of the big things that organizers face as a challenge is simply that labor market churn I was mentioning before. Because just to stay in place, they have to do a lot of new organizing, much less to increase density, which is a very heavy lift. So that's true everywhere, not just here in New York, but that's one of the big challenges. And then, you know, the legal environment, to put it mildly, is not exactly friendly right now either, the legal and political environment. So the Janus case that you mentioned, that's a national thing. It doesn't just affect New York. That was brought by some conservative organizations who found a plaintiff. His name, amazingly, is Janus, as in Janus faced, you know, and he is a public sector employee, and he brought suit saying that it should be illegal for him to be paying what are called agency fees. This is very inside baseball language, but it basically means in the public sector, in many jurisdictions, if a union represents the workforce, say teachers or social workers or whatever, who are public employees, if they choose not to join the union can still collect what's called an agency fee, or sometimes a fair share fee, for the representation of those workers, because the law requires the union to represent them even if they don't join the union. So that's now been challenged, and successfully, by Mark Janus. New York State actually passed some legislation trying to blunt the effects of that locally, and you know, I think it's too early to know whether it will make a difference or not. There isn't a whole lot of new public sector organizing anyway. It's where the action is really in private sector.
So you've got a situation where the question of union organizing is critical, clearly. It's not something that can just be static. People have to keep organizing and keep bringing in new people.
Just to stay in place,
just to stay in place. We've got a political campaign going on in the background of this conversation where it looks as if the Democratic candidates, anyway, are paying more attention to the labor sector than they have in years. Maybe they got the message that they've been kind of sleeping at the wheel. What do you make of any of the proposals that are coming out of those candidates? Bernie Sanders, former governor of Vermont, Senator Sanders, former presidential candidate, he has made it his major campaign plan to double union density in his first 4 years by, among other things, making it easier to organize.
Yes. Well, so he has adopted some proposals that have been around for a long time, but that have not gained political traction. And I guess if we had President Sanders, maybe they would. It's not something a president can do alone. It would require changes in congressional legislation. But basically, the law of the land in terms of labor organizing is mostly framed by something called the National Labor Relations Act, passed back in 1935. And it's still the law of the land, but it has kind of been eviscerated over the years by a bunch of court decisions and workarounds that employers and their labor consultants have developed to make it much more difficult than it was in the 1930s to recruit new workers into unions. So Sanders' proposals are trying to reverse some of those.
Yeah, I mean, we have people being fired for organizing.
Which is illegal, by the way, but yeah, that's already illegal, but it happens every day. And the penalties are so small that many employers just see it as a cost of doing business in the unlikely event that someone brings.
And then we have big victories like the graduate students' victories that look likely to be overturned almost immediately
Well, that one might be, but actually, what gives me hope about the future of labor is actually the younger generation of workers who seem much more interested in unions than previous generations for quite a while. So the graduate students are one example. Journalists in your field are another one who are organizing more than in the past. And even the teachers, not here in New York where they're already very strongly unionized, but the red state teacher strikes that we saw a year ago were led by mostly millennial generation teachers who, if you look at the polling data on millennials, they're very positively, they view unions very, very positively more than older people. I think since the 2008 crash, where we've seen a resurgence of social movements challenging the economic and political order to a much greater degree than than since the 60s probably, things like Occupy Wall Street and Black Lives Matter and so on. And those are spearheaded, just like some of the new union organizers, by a new generation that is much more critical of the status quo and is very interested in organizing in the workplace. So that's the basis for, if there's any basis for optimism, that's where it lies.
So the culture could be shifting, whereas for many years we've had the creation of a status quo or a culture where not being a member of a union is the norm.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, again, what gives me hope is the young people who come to take our labor studies courses at the school and who are doing the new organizing. The future is theirs after all, and so if anything does change, it's going to be their work that makes it happen.
All right, thank you so much. You can find more information about the study that we've been discussing at the website of the Labor and Urban Studies School here at CUNY. They're the folks who bring you CityWorks. Thanks. There's every variety of movement below ground in New York City, the trains, but also dancing. Talented, committed with all the moves, these performers are mostly young men. In the cars or on the concrete platforms, their strength and agility can seem superhuman, but it's not. It's human. CityWorks recently caught up with dancer Isyrel Jules.
Just coming out to New York when I was 18 years old, I started street performing by myself, just because I was homeless at the time, and that's the only means I had to make money. So my friend would let me borrow his boombox, and from there I would just go out and street perform every single day. And it taught me lessons on how to better perform for people, how to push myself to another level and keep it at that level. This is where I made my money. I street performed every day. I went to shelters, street performed even when I was in the shelters. Then I ran into a few crews that took me in, like ROC, which is Raiders of Concrete. I joined them around 2015, and from there I just street performing with a group. So I learned the group aspect of hitting, how to juice. Juicing is basically when you take the bucket or you take a hat, and it might be the bucket that you're using to put all the money in, or be a separate thing that you have that's light and small that you can go up to people, because people are more inclined to pay you when you go up to them. As far as just coming in and how long we street perform for, people will be out here for 8 hours sometimes. Me personally, as far as a dancer goes, it's more physically taxing. So a musician could be out here for 8 hours and go home no problem. But for us, if we go out, it's because if you're gonna hit, you want to treat it like an actual job. You want to go out and clock in and get your hours in. So maybe sometimes people go out 2 hours. I go out personally for 4 to 5 hours, sometimes 6. So the downsides are the fact that it's a little bit dirty. Well, it's really dirty. You have people who might laugh at you, might try to walk through your show. They don't want to move. You have undercover cops or just regular cops that arrest you for street performing. You might not get paid. It might be a slow day, especially if you go out late. Or it just might be a certain day where people, maybe that's the beginning of the week, and people just not in the mood to pay. So those are the downsides, I would say. One thing I think about is how in the Bible, even though I'm not religious myself, it said your talent will take you to perform in front of kings and queens. And my talent literally did that. I got to perform for the royal family in Amsterdam. I actually kissed the Princess of India on the cheek on accident. I didn't know it was her. But it was at the reception party, and I was just like, wow, like, I'm actually here. This is actually happening. This is my first overseas performance. I'm just looking forward to just going many places. I've been part of, like, many shows, like with Showtime NYC, at the Shed, Harlem Stage, Jacob's Pillow, The Kitchen, and just other places that are just, like, such a blessing to perform at. And it's really been just taking me places that I never thought I would go. It took a lot, like, of meditation and just, like, healing within myself, just to be like, okay, why did I start dancing? And get into that inner child, like, energy within myself, and then always remembering that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, which I feel like I'm getting closer to that.
Thanks for watching. If you have a story about New Yorkers at work or your own story to tell, let us know. You can reach us at cityworks@slu.cuny.edu. I'm Laura Flanders.